a secret now. I see dead people.
Welcome to Blondes and Booze. You are about to embark on a journey, one that often leads to more questions than answers. But fear not, your host, Krista, Aaron, and Brandy have the experience, the perseverance, and yes, even the gifts to pull back the veil and allow us to glimpse the other side. They will share not only their experiences, but will introduce you to world-renowned researchers and experiencers to help you find answers in the murky waters of what we call the paranormal. Their bonds with each other reach far beyond friendship, resulting in a pull no punches approach to the many subjects they explore. Their goal? To open eyes, hearts, and even minds to what lies on the other side, and the answers residing there.
Hey everybody, welcome. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. Sorry, when it came on, I had a mouthful of ice.
Happy Friday.
Right? Bad timing.
Well, I see that Facebook is not allowing us to stream again tonight. Sorry about that, but not sorry. Yeah. Just come on over to YouTube and check us out.
I just deleted it. It just asked me when we went live, so I just deleted it. Hey. But we're still on Twitter.
Yes, we are on X.
Whatever it's called. It looks like Twitter to me. No, it's all good. I don't know what the deal is with Facebook, so we don't need them anyway.
That's right. All the cool people hang out on YouTube.
That's right. And speaking of YouTube, I believe we are like 28 subscribers from 1,000, and we would appreciate it.
We are.
If everybody could share us out, it would be much appreciated.
Yeah. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your family.
Yep. Make your grandkids subscribe like I did mine.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Subscribe, everybody. Who cares?
Yeah. So anyway, but we definitely appreciate everybody being here. Brandy, do you want to remind everybody what to watch this week?
Absolutely. On Monday nights, of course, it's Texas Front Porch with me and Tex. That is 8 p.m. Central. On Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, it's Bob Van Buren and Van Buren Variety. At 8 p.m., it's Beyond BMR with Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Don't forget, Jason McLean has his own channel now. He's doing his own shows. Some of them are live, some of them are not. So just keep going over there and checking. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe. That way, when he does come on live, you can check that out. On Thursdays at 12 p.m. Central, it is Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob and his co-host, our lovely Krista over here. I keep forgetting this is backwards. Over here. Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Central, of course, it's us on Blondes and Booze. On Fridays at 8 p.m. Central, it's Blondes, Booze, and the Woo. And on Saturday, Tex and Danielle Diva release their newest episode of Infamous Minds. And that's all I have.
That's it. That's your story and you're sticking to it, right?
That's it.
Yeah. You were off work today. You got lucky.
I did. I got lucky and was lazy, and I napped and watched, some documentaries and, just hung out. Had the windows open. I realized it was 83 degrees, and that may be hot to some people, but to us, it was cool. Very, very nice. I had my windows open today, but I had to shut them up just recently because it started getting hot, and Satan's coming back to town.
Yep.
So it is going to be unbearable starting on Sunday. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I got to work today and we didn't have power. So that was an interesting morning for me.
Yeah. Krista calls me on the phone. She goes, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. We have no power. I don't know.
I couldn't use
So
my
they can't
laptop.
turn my
I used
computer
it.
on.
Yeah, I used my laptop last night for the show and it died. So I'm like, oh, what do I do here? So I had to call. I called home office and they're out of Texas. And I said, is our electric bill paid before I call the electric company? Of course it was.
They're like, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, they came and fixed it and it's all good now. So anyway,
Absolutely.
I'm excited about this show. I'm going to go ahead and just bring up DA and Robby. Most everybody, I think, knows the both of them. Hello, guys.
Yes. Hello.
Hey, ladies.
Let's talk some gruesome face eaters. You know, and I hate calling them that. It's just kind of like, you know, when we're out in the field and stuff, you know, you're big man, Bigfoot, and then you're talking about maybe a dog man and you're scared of that. But then here's gugway. You're like, oh no, that freaks me out. I think more than anything, I think a gugway freaks me out more. I think the most.
Yeah, I'm all about the gugways, so I got to tell you, I guess I like scary stuff, you know, and so to me, a gugway is scary, you know, so I'm all about.
Yeah, I just don't want to meet one. Ever.
No, I didn't say that, but I'm interested in learning more about them.
Right, that's true, because they are.
Well, of all the types of Bigfoot, they're the ones that you don't hear peaceful encounter stories with.
No,
They're always violent and aggressive.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So
even the Genosqua, it's kind of like 70-40, maybe.
70-30. Where'd you learn the math?
Pickens. My math today. Anyway, they're sometimes you hear them come in and taking people, sometimes you don't, but like DA said, you never hear of a peaceful encounter with a gugway.
No, you don't.
No, and it's not like you see one and then they go about their way and you go about yours. It's like there's always some aggression, you know, somewhere in the encounter. So that's.
So you guys want to start and actually tell what a gugway is?
Robby, you want to jump on this? You want me to take it?
Well, I'll start on it, and then you can just
go for it.
You can fill in the holes. For lack of a better model or something to put this after, think about a mandrill. Think about how that looks, and the protruding snout, the big, like the baboons, the big long canines, and every bit of the attitude times about, what would you say, 15 DA, maybe 20?
Oh, definitely.
Extremely. Think about certain species of different animals that have that higher level of testosterone, and they're always super aggressive. Like baboons and mandrills are really super aggressive because they have those high testosterone levels. It's pretty much what this is in the Bigfoot world. It's just super aggressive, super pissed off, always in a bad mood, and I mean, the name says it all. It translates to face eater.
Yep. I got to interrupt you for a minute. I'm sorry, but Miss Naoma, that just cracked me up. I had to put that one up.
Got it tied up real well.
Yeah, true story. How common do you think gugway are?
You know, they used to be one of the less common, but we're starting to see a trend in reports of gugway in places where they weren't traditionally before. Normally, the gugway were generally reported in colder climates along the Great Lakes area and up into Canada. But recently, I've seen a few reports from as far away as East Texas.
Oh, wow. And that's hot there, so...
And another thing that we just
here's a question. Well, I'm wondering if it is due to more breeding between them, or is it, the ecosystem? Is it that, or is it because there's more people on Earth than there used to be, or what do you think it is?
Well, much like any other wild animal, we are more and more encroaching into their habitat. But like we've discussed on our show, and Robby will verify this, is we've noticed that since the Black Plague of the 21st century, when everybody stayed home for essentially 2 years, nature started taking back places. Places that we used to go all the time that were clear trails are mostly overgrown again. And we're starting to see, even here in Springfield, which is the third largest city in Missouri, we're seeing mountain lions and black bears on Ring doorbell cameras in town. And considering Springfield is surrounded by bedroom communities, they've got to go through quite a bit of people just to get into Springfield. And we're seeing them on Ring doorbell cameras. Makes the news here. And they're heading into habitats where normally we kept them at bay. And we're also seeing less hunting going on, especially some of the more aggressive species. And another thing is, I think to a certain extent, I think a lot of these animals are starting to lose their fear of us.
Yeah, I would agree. I would definitely agree.
And another thing that we've discussed before too is a lot of the was it top 3 dogman encounters, DA?
Mm-hmm.
We believe are misidentified gugway, because if you look at that picture, now DA's brought it up, probably 100 times on our show.
Right.
Look at that variant of the dogman; it does resemble a gugway. So we think that maybe they have been seen a lot more than we actually know, but it's just they've been classified as a dogman side.
Dogman, right? Yeah.
Right.
And I guess when you're scared and freaked out like that, you see something that looks remotely close. Oh yeah, that's it. So I get where that could happen for sure.
Well, and you think about like we talked about, the elongated snout, the canines. It's kind of, especially if you're having a lot of these sightings predominantly at night, it would be really, really easy to mistake that for more of a canine look than, say, your typical Bigfoot looks more like a grade 8. I mean,
right.
Especially if it's somebody that's not familiar with cryptids in any way, which happens a lot. A lot of people didn't have any inkling about the different types of cryptids until they saw one. If a person who wasn't as versed in the lore saw a big creature in the woods, probably first thing they're going to think is Bigfoot. But when they see it's got a snout, they'll probably go werewolf.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and you're going to think that most people are just taking a quick glance at it, and then they're heading out. They're not staying to study it. They're out. So they're just taking a quick glance, and that may be, the best they're going to get.
Yeah, very much so.
I spoke to some people down in Arkansas, and they were at War Eagle State Park in Arkansas, which is not too far from Eureka Springs. And they said that they were chased out of there by what they first described as a dog man. But they said it looked like a big wolf type thing. And I said, well, describe it. And they started describing it, and they said, well, it was big. It looked like a Bigfoot, but it had this snout. And I said, did it have legs like a dog or legs like a person? They said, well, what we could see, it looked like it had legs of a person, but it was just massive. And I said, did you see pronounced canines? And they said, yes. And I said, it sounds to me like you're describing a gugway more than you're describing a dog man. I said, did you see pointed ears? No, we didn't see any ears on it at all. It looked like a big gorilla other than the snout. So I pulled up on my phone the movie Primal Rage. I pulled up a still from that. Does it look like that? They're like, oh my God, it looked just like that.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's something, speaking of that movie, that's something that DA and Doc and Steve and I have all kind of theorized that, and I can't think of who directed that movie. We've talked about it pretty extensively, that we think that whoever did that probably got a hold of some stuff about that, and that's what they patterned that after, was a gugway, because it was super aggressive. It
Very smart.
Yeah, very smart. It did
tool user.
And you think about a lot of times when you get because I've been paced out of the woods before, okay, gets to the edge of their territory and it stops. This thing didn't do that in the movie. I mean, it aggressively pursued them throughout, and that's typically what we hear.
Right.
Of the gugway is it's super aggressive, and it's not like, okay, you're out of my territory, I'm gonna leave you alone. It's like,
yeah. Somebody just asked, and I was just going to ask it. Roxanne we have good minds. Are gugways bigger or the same size as Bigfoot?
heard Bigfoot, descriptions of Bigfoot from the 12 to 15-foot range. But I would say on an average, most Bigfoot sightings are between 7 to 10 feet. But the average gugway are slightly larger than your average Bigfoot. I don't know how big a gugway could get, but the sightings we get generally start around 10 feet.
Are there any prints ever been casted of a gugway that you know of?
I've heard some versions of the legend. Native Americans claim that they have a 3-toed print with claws, and others have it with 5 toes with claws. So I'm gonna say it's fairly safe to bet it looks a lot like a Bigfoot print, but you're going to see claws at the ends of the toes. And one thing to be careful about that is Robby can explain more about what a double step is, but bears will double step on their own track, and there'll be claw marks on that. But you got to look for that secondary track. You got to look for that secondary double step. Robby, do you want to explain more about what a double step is? You can do it much better than I can.
And bears, I can't think of the correct terminology, but the way bears walk, that they walk with both, right side feet are in line and left side feet are in line. Right. So a lot of times when they're walking on all fours, they'll get that double step. They'll step down with their front foot, and then their back foot, a lot of times, not all the time, sometimes you'll see a straight track way, but depending on the size of the bear, how fast it's moving, things like that, the back foot will step into the front foot, and that's where you'll get that elongate. You'll have the big wide front part of its front foot, and then you'll have the elongated part that looks kind of sort of like a human track at the back that will double step into that, and it makes it look like a very big humanoid looking track.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to, like we've said hundreds of times, is knowing what animals are in the area that you're going into, knowing, because you can go get these what are those little maps they get with all the tracks? There's a certain thing that they're called, like a hunter's guide or a sportsman's guide or a hiker's guide or something like that. It tells of whatever area you're in. It'll show the footprints of every known species that has been cataloged in that area. So you have to get to know that kind of stuff, because if you don't, like DA said, if you're not looking or you haven't looked at a bear track and you see that, I mean, right off the bat, you're going to think, oh, because that's what it's going to look like.
Right. That makes sense. Real quick, Abnormal Investigations just made a comment here. Let me put it back up here. Native said that when I was there, that the Girl Scout murders, it was a gugway. I find that interesting.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we talked about that when he was on our show.
Yeah,
the possibility that it could have been something, because some of the things that were done, the feats of strength that it took to do some of the stuff that Mike was explaining to us. Matter of fact, I think it was you that even said that. DA was like, that sounds like stuff that you would hear about a gugway being able to do, because that's one of the things they talk about, how physically strong they are.
The some of the things, like he was saying, some of the things it did was just way beyond what any person was capable of doing.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. So have you ever heard of a report in Missouri? Just curious, since we live here.
Well, one down in War Eagle's pretty close. And considering the Ozark National Forest and the Mark Twain Connect, it's not a big leap of the imagination to think, and if most of the reports come out of Canada and the Great Lakes area, it would have had to gone through there to get to Canada. I get to Arkansas. So I would say very much so. We get encounter stories from the Mark Twain of aggressive acting Bigfoot, and I'm wondering if it might be might be running into some of those.
A gugway,
and to piggyback on that, when you talk about Canada, that's where Todd Standridge is from. A lot of his encounters, they are super highly aggressive. So he may. And
well, I have a theory about aggression in Sasquatch, and again, it's just a theory. If you compare, let's just look at bears for example. Down here in the lower 48, we've got a lot of black bears, and we get black bears in this area. And if you look at how the regional varieties of black bears are different, like East Coast black bears are very different than West Coast black bears, so you can see variances in that. But black bears down in the lower 48, especially in our area, are primarily they eat berries and they eat bark and they eat roots, but they will eat meat. They're opportunistic. They'll eat a deer carcass, or they will eat meat if given the opportunity. They won't turn it down. Get a little farther north where things start to get a little colder. Look at how the size difference of a black bear and a brown bear. Brown bears are much bigger. Of course, you got the grizzlies and the Kodiaks are members of the brown bear family. They're much bigger, and they eat a far more of a meat diet. They still eat roots and berries and everything else. They're omnivorous, but they eat a lot more meat than their smaller black bear cousins. Get farther north into the polar bear, that's all they eat is meat. They're not omnivorous. They will hunt people, and it's been documented that they've hunted people.
Yeah, absolutely. Pancho Zorch asked, what colors are mostly reported?
On the gugway, they tend to be dark brown or black, but I have seen one report where one was white.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, we hear reports all the time of wildlife having albino offspring. I mean, it makes
albinism runs in pretty much every species.
To Bigfoot, gugway, or anyone else.
Well, the reason you don't see a whole lot of albinos in the wild is just because they don't tend to survive, because they don't have the camouflage capability, and they typically don't make it too long. But there's like you see, and I don't know if a piebald buck is technically albino, even though it looks pretty much. Even those are pretty rare. Yeah.
What's the white one up north? Lori Barnes asked.
No, actually, that was from Arkansas.
Oh wow, that's pretty sad.
I mean, considering it's a gugway and it's white, I don't think I would mess with it. Anyway,
War Eagle State Park is right there in the Ozark National Forest, so
okay. Absolutely. What would you say that they weigh if you think they're bigger than a Bigfoot?
It's hard to really make an accurate guess. Because we've never had one to weigh. But if you look at muscle density, I'm 5'10", almost 5'11". If you put me next to Shaquille O'Neal, I'm going to look like a toddler.
Right.
And his muscle density is going to be much bigger to support a frame that big. Now you magnify that by another 4 feet. This thing is, pushing, 10, 11 feet tall with a dense muscle mass, because they're reported to be thickly muscled. If you scale that up, it's probably got to be pushing 1,200 pounds.
Wow. That's something I sure wouldn't want to mess with. Because if you look at a horse, horses anywhere from, a decent sized horse, 1,000 to 1,200 pounds. I couldn't imagine meeting a creature like that out in the woods.
Not one hell bent on eating you.
No, not at all. I know, like they go way back. Like Native Americans seen them and things like that. It just like all of this stuff with the gugway, the dogmen, and I just wonder how far back they really do go.
Well, and you think about a tiger and how big a tiger looks. Mm-hmm. That's a massive animal, but for the most part, tigers are bigger than the males. Average female tiger weighs 600 pounds. Now think about how big that tiger looks, and that's 600 pounds. So imagine that standing up, but like twice as wide and a lot more muscled. So if a tiger can reach 600 pounds, then it's not a stretch at all. Like DA said,
sure,
at least 1,200 on the maybe on the smaller side.
A silverback gorilla. A big male silverback gorilla can be 600 to 700 pounds, and they're not much taller than us. I mean, they're not like 10 feet tall. These things are like on their hind legs. They're like 6.5 feet tall. They're not massive, but they are very thick and broad.
Sure.
And you just think about bodybuilders. Ronnie Coleman was 6'1", I think, DA, and At his heaviest competition weight, he's 6'1", not much taller than DA. He was 315 pounds.
That's a lot of muscle.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, that is a lot of muscle.
With like a 3% body fat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So muscle weighs more than fat anyway. So you got something out there that's that heavily muscled, it's going to weigh a lot.
Yeah.
It may look lean. It may look like it only weighs 1,000 pounds, but it's probably going to be on the north side of 1,200. I'd say probably 13, 14, maybe even 15, depending on how big it is.
Wow. Yeah.
Venom's got a good point. She says, think of what a chimp can do to a human and multiply that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Chimps, people that have had chimps as pets, the chimps for just one day decide to flip out. They've torn people's arms off, eaten their faces off. Chimps would be devastating. And a chimpanzee is smaller than us, but they say on average a chimpanzee is about 10 times the strength of a human. So if you kind of factor that as a chimpanzee is roughly 10 times our strength, what would a Bigfoot be? 70, 80 times our strength?
Right. That's a scary thought. There was a lady I remember reading about, I don't know, in the last few years or something. She had a pet chimp and it ate her face, if I remember correctly.
They will eat if they attack a person, they'll go for the face and they'll eat your fingers off.
Yep. Anti-venom just said that too. Yep. Yeah, they're nothing to be messed with either, Do you think, like, we've all talked about how Bigfoot dogmen, could follow cave systems. What do you think about that with gugway?
I think they're definitely intelligent enough to do it. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I think most of these things, one of the main reasons we have so much trouble finding them is I think they spend a lot of time below ground.
Yeah, I would agree. Roxanne Delgado says, could it be gugways are all over, but just no survivors to report? Or if a person was able to get away, they're scared to report it. I think she meant to say, but yeah, that totally makes sense to me.
Yeah, I would say, especially in the northern parks, I would say that the missing 411 cases, probably a lot of those are gugway.
Well, Johnny just sent me. I meant to send it to you today, DA, and I got tied up and forgot. There's a couple that's missing in Alaska right now. Did you hear about it?
I
didn't heard about that.
I didn't hear it.
Right out of Fairbanks. So it kind of goes back because a lot of people when they think cave, and we kind of heard this the other night. I didn't say anything, but somebody's like, "Well, when I think of a cave, I just think of just a little thing that goes
a hole in the ground."
Yeah, it's just basically a little hole in the ground. When we talk these cave systems, like the Mammoth Cave system, that's the largest cave system in the United States, right, DA?
Yeah.
It's called the Mammoth
largest
Cave.
Known.
Yeah. It's called the Mammoth Caves for a reason. This thing is massive. I mean, and it's only been 20% of it that they say has been explored.
Maybe even less. I was reading an article about it just yesterday, Robby, that said that they theorize that Mammoth Cave may extend all the way to Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico and even into Mexico.
Johnny said that the other night when we were talking about the episode we did on that attack that I was telling you about in the Mammoth Cave, or not in the cave itself, but where the couple was in their campsite and the guy come running in screaming something that went into his campsite, and he had a gun. He said it was Bigfoot, and he said, if you hear anything, call me. And he took off running, and then a few minutes later they heard like 15 gunshots. But
wow.
Johnny was talking about, and I guess he saw the same article you did. He said that they are now saying that cave could extend all the way to Mexico.
Well, one of the more interesting things, and this is just kind of to kind of put into perspective, and this is something I know because it was done when I still lived up there. Back in the late 70s, they wanted to find out how in depth, how far down the spring at Bennett Springs went. So they released a chemical marker dye into the spring. and they had people stationed all over the United States with this exact frequency, looking for it to start emitting from anywhere in the States.
Mhm.
Well, they waited and they waited and they waited, and 6 months later, it surfaced in Alaska.
Wow. Wow. That's
Ooh, Tex, that's good. Says I did the math using gorillas as a base. They're 7 times stronger than a human. The average human can lift their body weight. A 5-foot-tall gorilla is on average 400 pounds. You amp that up to 8 or 10 feet. Yeah, I would say easily one of those could come up and flip your car.
Oh yeah, easily.
Well, we've heard reports of stuff like that happening.
Mm-hmm.
About cars just getting.
Mhm.
Think about some of the stories we talked about. The guys fishing on the canoe and something lobbing rocks the size of basketballs. That's
Little boy just down here on Table Rock Lake was trolling back into a little cut, a little slough, and was just sitting there fishing, minding his own business, and he started getting rocks lobbed out of him out of the tree line, and he said they were still on the way up when they came out of the trees, and he was still 30 yards from shore. He said they were hitting damn close to his boat. He said those things had to be the size of a bowling ball or bigger, probably weighed upwards of 100 pounds apiece. He said I didn't wait to find out what was chucking them. He said I know no person could have thrown them that far. He said, so I fired up the motor and got the hell out of there.
Wow, that's interesting.
And the ones around Table Rock Lake which is exactly what inspired my book, The Lakeview Man. But the ones around Table Rock Lake are reported to be pretty damned aggressive.
Yeah. Maggie M10 wants to know how much of the face is eaten. Do you think
All of it.
will they eat the whole thing, I guess?
In my book, I described them taking somebody, just basically yanking somebody's head off and eating it like an apple. They're powerful jaws, but the problem is we don't have any survivors of gugway attacks to tell us what happened. Generally, if somebody had a gugway encounter, they were running and they fled and got away from it. If these things are as aggressive as they've proven to be, if they're aggressively attacking people, we're not getting survivors to tell us how much was eaten.
Right. You know, Lori Barnes said something that popped in my head. She says, I can't imagine how they can throw these rocks so accurately when they are that heavy. Do they have Bigfoot traits where they like do the rock throwing and things like that?
Yeah, I've heard of them doing that. I've also heard of them being tool users. Making spear tips, I don't know about making bows and arrows like they showed in the movie, but they've certainly made spear tips and sharpened rocks to hold in their hand.
Oh, wow.
Just basic flint napping.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a trait that's shared amongst a lot of the great ape species. Baboons have been known to use tools, orangutans, chimpanzees, even gorillas. I mean, you think about it when they do their territorial display, you see them rip the trees down and smack them on the side. I mean, that's tool usage. Whether they use it to beat another one in the head or not, if they've got a hold of it and they're using it to hit the ground, that's tool usage.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely. How many? I was going to ask you how many do you think like missing 411 cases are, and not just gugway, but are they? Do you feel like are related to a cryptid type creature?
Well, the thing about the missing 411 cases you have to bear in mind is the missing 411 cases are actually only a small percentage of people that go missing in national parks every year. There's a lot more people go missing than are profiled by the missing 411. Missing 411 only profiles cases that meet certain criteria. So it's hard to say what percentages that could be any one particular thing, and I don't really think there's one fast and firm answer. I don't think it's any one thing that's causing the disappearances and the missing 411. I think it's multiple things, and I think gugway is a very likely candidate for some of them, especially up in the Nahanni Valley area up in Canada.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know. I'm just kind of curious about that. I've always wondered that.
Well,
Nahanni Valley is what they call the Headless Valley. Every expedition that's gone in there and stayed any amount of time has not come back. And when people went looking for them, they found the bodies missing their heads.
What does that tell you? It sounds like a gugway to me.
And
it's a face eater. You certainly would want that bit.
And just to add more to what DA was saying about the missing 411, those are only the ones that people who go missing have somebody to report them. Think about the transient population. There's what was that number we come up with, DA, that of the homeless population in the United States?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
It was a big number. I want to say it was like 6 million or something like that. It is a big number. Now, those people don't have anybody to report them. We have homeless people through our town all the time. I'll see one a couple of days, then I won't see them again for maybe a month.
If you see them again at all.
Yeah, if you see them again, sometimes they'll pop back up, sometimes they won't.
Yeah.
You know, but you just have to assume that they just moved on. But, it's
impossible to track a transient population like that.
Some of these people may be, and some of those victims that we'll never know because there's nobody to report them missing.
Same thing with people that are crossing the border illegally. If a group of them disappears, nobody's going to report it. And the immigration issue aside, I'm not going to debate that. I'm not going to jump in the politics side of that. But if a group of people are coming across the border and they encountered a group of dogman or gugway or Bigfoot and they get taken out, we're never going to know unless the Border Patrol finds dismembered bodies. We'll never hear about it.
Yeah, no, we never will.
Well, Chris and I got into a conversation one night, and we were talking about dogman encounters up in St. Louis because people are having encounters right there, downtown, the whole thing, they're there. And so we started discussing, well, why would they be there? Well, the Mississippi River is right there.
Right.
They can run up and down that thing and be undetected because a lot of places close to there are really unpopulated. So it would be
same with the Missouri River and
right.
Every major river system has huge swaths of undeveloped territory. I mean, you've got between the Missouri, the Mississippi, and the Ohio, you've got 3 major thoroughfares for them to get to get from the Canadian side of the United States down to southern United States with very little human contact.
Right, exactly. So that makes me wonder because we have the tugboats and the barges and everything that run up and down, the Mississippi. We see them all the time. I wonder what the captain or some of the crew members see at times and don't report it.
I tell you who else doesn't report stuff. Train engineers.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to report it.
Yes.
Really?
But I have talked to a lot of guys that work for Burlington Northern on condition of anonymity. Like, yeah, we see shit like that along the train tracks all the time. And we're told, don't document it. Don't put it in your paperwork. Don't talk about it.
Wow. And I bet they do see a lot. It totally makes sense. Real quick, Maggie M10, thank you very much for that super sticker. Appreciate that. Pancho Zorch says, my experience was in Greenville, Missouri at the old Greenville site on the Black River. I know about Greenville. Isn't it a town that is deserted and do you know what I'm talking about, Brandy? It's down there by you.
It is located approximately 25 miles north of where I'm at.
Yeah.
25 to 30 miles.
What is the town or something? There's houses there, but it's an abandoned town, I believe.
Well, there's still
a lot of abandoned towns in Missouri.
What had happened is they took the highway, which is US 67, and they turned it into a 4-lane because it was a 2-lane forever. And it took such a long time to get from where I'm at all the way to St. Louis on this 2-lane road. Well, then they switched it to 4 lanes. And when they took that out, it went right through the town.
Gotcha.
I mean,
so that's why it's
right
abandoned.
through it. So a lot of places are abandoned because, the businesses that were there were torn down, or now they're off the roadway and nobody goes to, so they're abandoned. So yeah, that's what Greenville is. It's becoming a ghost town, but people still live there.
Yeah.
Well, when Interstate 44 killed Route 66, there were so many towns, it just basically became ghost towns overnight.
Yeah. Glenn Dennison, he said, and Times Beach, that's outside of Eureka, Missouri.
Times Beach was abandoned for a totally different reason, though.
Right.
It was because of dioxin poisoning.
Right. Yep. I remember when I was back in
It
town.
makes me wonder, though. We talk about these abandoned towns and everything. That do you think that the cryptids are out there seeing this and more likely to hang around that area that we have left?
It would make sense. When I was a teenager, a friend of mine, my buddy Chris and I, we found an old abandoned house out in the deep woods behind his family's farm. And the house had been obviously abandoned. They left a lot of stuff behind. There were no power lines running to it, so we kind of theorized it had to have been abandoned sometime in the 40s because rural electric went through that part of the county in the 40s. So there were no power lines to this house. They left behind an old cast iron cook stove. They left a lot of stuff that would have been heavy, but hard to move, but expensive items to replace. Even a couple of cars were rusted out. And when we got to the upstairs portion of the house, we found a nest, and it was about 6-7 feet across of woven branches and had a bunch of small bones in it.
Oh, wow.
So I would say they would very much welcome the chance to use some of our old abandoned structures. Because what is it other than just a cave? I mean, it's essentially a shelter.
It's already built. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And we've talked about this before. Think about it. It doesn't take nature long to take back out when all people are gone and there's no human interaction. It doesn't take nature very long to take back over an area.
Oh yeah.
No,
and DA and I have talked about that many times about how the Black Plague of the 21st century had kept us in our homes and out of these areas. So nature moved back in, and all of a sudden, okay, you can go back out, and we go right back to where we was at. That's why these sightings, are on the rise, because we're face to face with these things now. Whereas, like DA said before, we kind of held them at bay so then they started moving back, and then all of a sudden there we are again.
Right.
And they're not ready to give up that territory without a fight.
Yeah.
Especially once they found an easy food source.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
Thank you, Lene.
Thank you. Jinx, you owe me a Coke. Anyway.
Miss Lene's the best. She's awesome.
She is the best. I agree. I'm just trying to read some of the comments through chat. It's going so fast.
So I want to take this to because everybody talks about Sasquatch and the clans, and I call them family units. I'm not sure what's called. So I call them family units. Do you
think, good a term as any?
Yeah. Do you think that the gugway are similar to Sasquatch in that way, that they protect their family, or do you think they're more aggressive because they have family? Or I don't hear much about a family unit of gugway.
Right. I think the gugways are more loners. I think they probably only come together in times when they're breeding cycles. But I could be totally wrong. They could be clannish just like Bigfoot. But they certainly. Whereas some people have reported seeing multiple Bigfoot, I don't know of hardly any sightings that have more than 2 gugway in it.
Oh,
right.
Wow.
Yeah, I think because I've never heard of it. It's been most I've ever heard of is 1. So I guess if it's 2, it's something, really crazy.
Well, yeah, and Dr. Meldrum kind of hit on that a little bit at the conference in Ocala. Every great ape species is different. The way chimps, gorillas, orangutans, baboons, all of them are different on how the groups are, like the male gorilla will have a harem and he'll have a bunch of females and they're in a territory. But as a orangutan, you'll have one big male that'll have a territory and the females are mobile and, they'll go to the male. And then chimpanzees are a family group that move around. So they're all different. So, but there are similarities, but there's also differences too. So yeah, it could be that, like DA said, the gugways could be more like an orangutan, where you got a big male that stakes out territories, and the females and the young are moving around and just moving to those different territories on the breeding cycles.
Yeah. So Roxanne asked, DA, where can we find to read reports about, I think she meant to say gugway sightings. That's a good question.
There's really no one database that compiles simply gugway sightings. And that is something I was actually thinking about talking to a couple people about, starting just a gugway database. But where I found them is you when you dig through a lot of Bigfoot reports, look at the descriptions. You can pick them out pretty quickly because of the snout. They start talking about a Bigfoot, but it had a snout. That's a pretty dead giveaway. They're talking about a gugway. But the ones I found largely through just combing through stacks of reports, and in a few cases, eyewitness reports.
Gotcha. Let's see where it is. Maggie M10. She says, "I hope there are no gugways in Australia. I haven't looked into it." So that
I don't. What difference would it mean? Everything in Australia is trying to kill you.
Right. That's true. But
Absolutely.
But have you heard of any reports in, Asia, Europe, Australia, Africa, any of those other countries?
I've never heard of gugway in Africa or anything like that. But Africa's already got their hands full with the freaking billy ape.
Mm-hmm.
The billy ape is a nasty piece of business. The natives referred to the billy ape as lion killers. And of course, Western science is like, oh, no, that doesn't exist, until National Geographic caught them on camera in 1999. And like, oh, crap, these things do exist. They're like a chimpanzee on steroids.
Yeah.
They're like a 6 foot tall chimpanzee that's primarily a meat eater and have been known to drag off villagers and will band together to hunt lions. They make war on other clans of billy apes. And those were the killer ape theory was thought to just be another cryptid tale, another mythical story that just couldn't possibly exist until National Geographic, while trying to find something else, happened to catch them on footage. And they're like, holy crap, these things are real. The killer ape is real. And the locals are like, we've been telling you this for freaking 100 years. These things are out here. And, it always strikes me how funny.
That's what we feel like the Congo. That's what those killer apes were. They were.
I think it was the killer apes from Congo were based on the billy ape.
Mm-hmm. And she also says, or dogmen even, there are reports of dogmen in Australia.
There are lots of dogman archives. A pretty good one is on the North American Dogman Project's website. They've got a pretty good database of dogman sighting reports, but there are a few other places that have them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, there's some bad stuff out there. I seen a TV show, and I think it was what was that TV show called? Paranormal Caught on Tape. Mm-hmm. And it was an episode, and they said that it was a gugway. And when I seen that, it looked like a rape to me. So my point being is, I feel like there's where they got that information that it was a gugway sure didn't look like any gugway that.
Most of those shows that are on TV just go for sensationalism. They'll fixate on a report of something and call it whatever just to get people to click on. It's almost like clickbait. What we have to remember is all these paranormal shows, and I could name a couple of them in particular that are bad. And it's the same thing with network cryptid shows. They're there primarily to get ratings. Those shows are there to make money. So don't really look to those to be a great source of any real information. They're sensationalizing things to a large extent to get ratings. If they were calling that a gugway and it looked more like a rake, they probably just didn't know what else to call it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I was like, which really kind of bothers me, because there's bad information out there for people who really are trying to learn, or somebody had an encounter and they really are trying to figure out what they saw. I think that's wrong.
Yeah,
whether it's on documentary series. Oh, sorry, Brandy, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the misidentification that goes on between a lot of things these days. I mean, you could have dogmen and werewolf sightings that could be either or I'm pretty sure Bigfoot and the gugway, the sightings could be exchanged a lot too. Or, I mean, you really don't know what you're dealing with unless these people can really remember what they're seeing. But like I said at the beginning of the show, a lot of people are it's a quick glance. That's all they get. They're out of there. They're not going to stay around and study it. So
think about that, Brandy. The term dogman wasn't around until the 90s, DA?
The 90s.
Yeah. So everything prior to the 90s, when the term dogman came out, that's werewolf. That's
Werewolf.
whatever. So think
What
about
else would you call it?
Yeah, back in the
A wolf
1700s.
man.
Back in the
Wolfman.
1700s, when they were sighting these things along, the French Canadians and that were running up and down the rivers trapping, and they were seeing these things. That's what they were calling them, Lugaroo and Rougarou and things like that. There wasn't a term dogman back then. So,
Right.
but now you got that, and when people start seeing ones that look more like the Rottweiler heads, or like Anubis with a jackal, or things like that. That I believe is where people started calling them a dog man. Well, it doesn't really look like a wolf, so it looks more like a dog. So we're gonna call it a dog man instead of a wolf man. But basically, it's all the same. It's all the same type of species. Just like think about all the different names that First Nation tribes have for what we call Bigfoot. The popular name from the '60s that the reporter. You got Sasquatch, Yeti, Almasty, Yeren, Shinnetonka.
Alma.
Yeah, I mean, every First Nation tribe has a legend about something like that, and every one of them is different. Every one of some like Shinnetonka was Big Elder Brother, DA.
Big Elder Brother. Then you've got like like Oma, Gugway. I mean, you've got so many. Every tribe's got a different name, and they don't always mean the same things. Like for example, he just talked about Shiitanka. That's the Lakota word for Bigfoot, and they referred to it as a Big Elder Brother. But other tribes say, "Don't get near these things; they'll kill you."
Right. Well, we're gonna have to stop you right there for just a moment. Just hang on to that thought. We're coming up on the 52-minute mark, so we're gonna have to take a 5-minute break. Now it's time to go get your drink, your snacks, or do what you got to do, and all that kind of good stuff. Because I know what I'm gonna do.
All right, we'll be back in 5. Everybody hang tight.
Four minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. Three minutes. We're almost there. 2-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. One minute. 1 minute.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Appreciate everybody sticking around with us. Before we go any further, DA, you want to talk about where everybody can buy your books? Because you have some great books out there.
Sure. You can find all of my books either on Amazon or on my website, which is daroberts.net. If you like cryptid stories with a lot of action, I've got a lot of books for you then.
Yep, absolutely.
How many books do you have now?
I have 29 out currently in print, getting ready to release number 30, waiting on final cover now.
Gee,
Good
wow.
deal. Good deal. I actually have 3 of your books now. And the last one, I've got it in my bag for the hospital for when my daughter goes into labor. So I plan on doing some reading. So it's in my bag. So anyway,
I like them.
I definitely encourage everybody to check out DA's books for sure. So
Doc and I like to call him the Tom Clancy of cryptids.
yeah, that's true story. True story. As Roxanne says, DA's books are awesome.
I've heard you talk about your characters are your friends.
I do put a lot of people I know in my books, or at least some version of them. But then some are pretty much just direct. But I've always liked to use real locations and in a lot of cases real people, because I think it lends much bigger credence to the stories. It allows the stories to seem far more real. And when we're dealing with fiction, you've always got a certain amount of suspension of disbelief. Like if it's a zombie story, you have to just accept that zombies are real and move on with the story. That's called suspension of disbelief. But in order for that to happen, all the little details need to be right. So if for example, you say somebody was driving a specific type of car and you describe it as an automatic when it's actually a 4-speed, people are going to see that and they go, okay, that's an error. And then they're going to wonder what else you messed up. I try to make sure that all those little details that form the foundation of the story, I try to make sure they're as accurate as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we were reading the stories, what's Robby's character?
Well, he's in the Wild Hunt. He actually has the same name, but if you find him if you find the character that's based on him in the new Dark Frontiers series, which is set in 1865, he's an ancestor of Robby's named Jedediah Rains.
Oh, okay. So you heard it here, everybody.
And real
Robby
quick,
Reeves.
before we go any further, you have merch for sale because I almost forgot. I am wearing your shirt.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That is cool.
So I meant to do that earlier, and then on break, I looked down and I was like, well, shoot, I didn't even promote your shirt. So you do have merch for sale.
And you can find that directly off my website. There's a link to the merch store right off my website, which again is daroberts.net.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
And Robby, you got some things you've got in the works too, don't you?
Yeah. Me and DA have got some other merch. Can we go ahead and show them a few things, DA?
Go ahead.
Lone Wolf Customs is my shop that I've been doing like custom woodwork. Brandy's got one of my bow racks. DA's got somewhere there. He's got one that I made. That he.
Just a second.
But I've had my CNC for a couple of years. I finally branched out and pulled the trigger, and I went out and got a laser engraver. So Lone Wolf Customs is now going to be more of like a jumping off point for DA and Doc and I to start selling some of our merchandise, some laser engraved stuff. And it's not just tumblers. I mean, there's other stuff. So we don't have a time frame on when we're going to get started because we still got a lot of logistics. We got
a lot of groundwork to do.
Yeah, we got to get a lot of stuff figured out about shipping and getting product in to be able to do. But that stuff like that's going to be coming. So I've been playing around with it, kind of getting everything dialed in, getting the feeds and speeds, figured out. So we're kind of excited about where this engraver is going to take us. I mean, probably for the last 2 weeks, we've just been bouncing up between me, Doc, and DA. Just been products bouncing. Hey, we could do this. Oh, what about this? Or we could do that. This would be great.
Right.
Right.
So, and Brandy and I both put in an order tonight.
Yep, already.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, DA said he's going to go broke. He's going to buy like the first run of just about everything. I think he's going to get one of everything we're talking about making. But that's going to be something. Now, that's not to say that if somebody doesn't want one, or we might have some kind of special stuff going on that we've kind of talked about maybe. That doesn't mean that you might not you can't get one sooner than later. Stuff like that can be, and there's probably going to be some,
and might show up at a convention.
Yeah, there might be some new merch at the convention.
Good deal.
So, if y'all gonna be at the Texas convention, I may have to be at the table with Brandy and Krista again, like I was in Nashville. But
that's okay. We like you, Robby. We'll keep you.
He's like, oh God, not again. No,
I actually enjoyed watching Brandy do her magic with people out there. She's a hustler.
I don't meet a stranger. I do not meet a stranger. I'll grab you right out of a crowd. I don't care.
That's the way to be.
I got the X-Tool laser engraver, little Patty.
Nope, I was just going to ask you. Yeah.
So when is your next episode coming out on what's really out there?
We've got 3 done. It's just Tyler's in the process of, because we had the show that goes right beside us. Sometimes they go a little bit over, so sometimes they're in there and they're a little bit loud. Yes, Tex. So Tyler, sometimes he has to work a little bit harder to get those noises out, and plus he just put a noise gate on it, so he's still trying to fine tune everything. So we've got them done. We got the next 3 episodes done. It's just waiting on Tyler to finish up on editing so we can get them out there. We got one on that the UFO thing that happened in Pickens that we talked about on DAX Machina 2 weeks ago. DA,
yeah, it was a couple of weeks ago.
We got one on the Mammoth Cave thing that we were just talking about, and we did an episode on the Big Thicket area of Texas.
Very cool. Very cool.
I can't remember which. I think Big Thicket's first, then the UFO, and then Mammoth Cave. I think that's how it's the order that's coming out. So Just
Yeah.
as soon as Tyler gets it to me, I've got everything else ready to go. I'm just waiting for him to get it to me so I can set them up for.
So, Robby, are you going to have T-shirts for sale too eventually? Do a merch store?
For my stuff, probably not. DA's already got his T-shirt stuff. This is just a different venture that we're going into with
Right.
the engraver. Maybe. If enough people start asking me for that, maybe.
Yeah.
But
We're going to be relaunching the merch store here probably in the next couple of months. We're going to be redesigning a lot of the shirts, and I'm probably going to be moving to a different vendor because Teespring is kind of slow on responding.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been getting some complaints from some folks that it's taken them months to get something they've ordered. So we're going to be looking at some other options and probably be doing a whole new line of merch as well.
You know, I ordered mine before the Gatlinburg conference, and it just came Monday. So
It's not
it was
horrible.
Yeah,
That's a little long.
It was about a month, maybe about a month.
Yeah.
That's not as bad as some of them I've heard.
Yeah, really. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because, back in the 80s, everybody always wore the concert shirts. Now I have shirts of my friends. I've got yours, I've got BMR, I've got
They're
Tex.
all lined up, they're all lined up,
Martin's shirts, yeah. Just,
if the merch goes the way we want it to go, it's going to be a one-stop shop for DA Ex Machina, Dark Angel Medical, and what's really out there / Lone Wolf Customs. It'll be, you go to that to get whatever you want from any of those brands.
Very cool.
That's what we're talking about. There's just a lot of logistics. We got a lot of groundwork, like DA said, that we got to go somewhere to get the website built or build it ourselves, and
Sure.
there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So we're kind of in the early stages of it now. That, like I said, we can do stuff, special order stuff right now.
Yeah.
And some things like we said for conferences and things like that. But,
yep. At Lori Barnes, yes, BMR does have shirts.
Yeah.
And I can drop the links to his in the Blondes and Booze chat.
Right. And of course, Texas Front Porch has them. And of course, don't forget ours. Ours is located on the Facebook page. But if you don't want to do that, then I'll have Chris to drop the link here also. But so a little birdie told me that possibly Doc is going to be in Texas.
It's up in the air. He ain't said no yet. He will be in Texas prior to the conference because he's teaching a class.
Gotcha.
Well, whether he's going to get to stay on for the conference or not, it's still kind of up in there. But he will be in Texas prior to, I think, up until like the day before the conference. DA, wasn't that?
Yeah, I think right about the time the conference is about to begin.
So,
Okay.
For that significant company that he works for.
That'll work. Yeah, because I was actually planning on I was gonna purchase a medical kit from him. So I'll have to know if he's coming or not. I might just have to go online and do it then.
Well, remember, if you do go to Dark Angel Medical and buy a kit, use discount code cryptid25 for 25% off your order.
And put Team Odin in the comments and get you a Team Odin rocker to go over your.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, I looked at them, and yes, they are not cheap by any means. They are not cheap. But let me tell you the guarantee: if you use anything in this medical kit to save somebody's life, for real, they will replace it. That is a lifetime guarantee. You can't beat that.
Life guarantee.
Yeah,
birthdays in boxes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's worth it. You get what you pay for. I believe that's with anything,
Well, if you're going to be going anywhere, if you're going camping, fishing, hunting, backpacking, anything like that, if you're going, especially cryptid hunting, if you're going in a place where you're away from basic 911 basic 911 services, having a first aid kit is a must. Going without one is extremely dangerous, because if you're on a back trail somewhere and you're miles from where you parked your car, even a sprained ankle can be fatal if you don't have a way to get out. There are people who have died because they were killed by coyotes because they couldn't walk and the coyotes got them. Basic first aid is something that everybody needs to be aware of, and having one of those kits on hand, it's a peace of mind, because you never know when you might be using that kit to save your own life or somebody you care about.
Yeah. And, I've heard Penny Van made the comment, Brandy, and that lifetime guarantee means any life, not only a human life. So cool.
Right.
I have heard Doc say that on your show, DA. So if you save your dog with it or whatever, he'll still replace it. That's pretty awesome.
You'll never have to buy another kit, ever.
Yep.
That is fantastic.
Yep. I have a question back on the cryptids. What
back there?
So Genosqua. What is the difference with a Bigfoot and a Genosqua?
The Genosqua were basically a type of aggressive Bigfoot that were notorious for coating themselves, they're matting their fur with tree sap and then rolling in rocks, so that like arrowheads that the Native Americans used wouldn't penetrate. I don't know if it's a behavior they still continue, because modern firearms and ballistics kind of makes using stones as armor kind of superfluous. You just be, increasing the amount of shrapnel that's getting punched into you. But that was a practice that they did back in the day when, everybody was primarily carrying bows and arrows. They would basically armor themselves with river rock.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Genosqua pretty much means stonish giant.
Yeah. Stonish giant.
And they're not like your normal typical. There's
actually a Cherokee legend that kind of sort of mimics that too. It's called the Stoneclad, and but there's two or three different versions of that. One is what we just talked about. They did the same thing as that. The other is it's more of a spiritual type thing, but the actual flesh and blood type or part of it is that they did the same thing. That they had stone armor that they would roll in the mud, the wet mud next to the river, and get their fur all coated with that mud, and then roll in rocks and let the rocks dry into their fur, mat into their fur, and it was basically like armor, like wearing a Kevlar vest.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know, I've heard they're not very nice, so I didn't know
they're also reported to be very aggressive, but they're only reports of Genosqua I've read were from in Canada. That I don't even think there is any reports known in the lower 48 that they're primarily a very cold weather creature.
Gotcha.
Those are the ones that would go into camps and snatch women and children and take them off.
Yeah. Okay.
Do they resemble the typical Bigfoot as in looks, or are they more like the gugway in the elongated snout?
No, they don't have the elongated snout. But one thing that they do describe is the massive teeth. They're obviously meat eaters. Whereas like the Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot, they've described, people that have seen them up fairly close would talk about, canines that might be a little bit bigger, but the teeth are by and large flat and wide. It's because they grind a lot of protein. And I would say they would also be good for crunching bone. But when you see something with much more pronounced and sharper teeth, that's for gripping and tearing meat. So these things are more bred toward a harsher climate and for primarily meat eating. And they tend to be pretty large. But then again, when you live in a cold weather environment all the time, generally the smaller creatures are the ones that don't survive. You need that heavy body mass to keep themselves warm. So the Genosqua tend to be, very, very aggressive meat eaters. Think of them as the polar bear of the Bigfoot world.
Okay.
Which, if you think about it, if you've heard any of Fred's stories, Fred from Alaska,
on your show,
that's probably what he's dealing with up there.
Yeah, because it's a very cold weather climate for most of the year.
Yeah, because you won't hear no fuzzy feel good stories about Fred's encounters and encounters that people tell him about up there.
Well, the Alaskan hairy man is notoriously cantankerous.
Right. John asked here, would you rather get attacked by a gugway or a dog man?
Ooh, that's kind of like saying which arm would you rather lose?
Right.
I don't really want to get attacked by either of them, which is precisely why anytime I go in the field, you can bet your your bottom dollar that that I'm armed and generally fairly well armed. Being a retired cop, I have a small arsenal at my disposal to go into the field with me. But I wouldn't even want to try to shoot one of these things with anything smaller than a 12 gauge with rifled slugs or a 458 SOCOM, because I think smaller calibers are just going to piss them off.
Yeah.
I guess for me, it would be kind of like if I had to choose pound for pound, I think I would choose a dog man.
I know. I'm kind of like you. So.
It's like saying, would you rather be eaten by a shark or by piranha?
I know.
Either way, you're getting eaten.
Would you rather have your arms and head and legs ripped off, or would you rather be mauled to death? I mean, that's pretty much out.
Yeah.
I would say with a gugway, it would probably be over fast.
Would move a little faster, and he'd get it over quick.
I would say that the gugway would probably be over quicker than with a dog man. A dog man's got to overpower you, and it's probably going to attack like most wolves. It's going to go for an extremity, or it's going to go for a neck and try to pin you down and then do damage. But a gugway, it's going to tear your head off. And by the time you realize you've been attacked, you're probably already dead.
Yeah. So, and I feel like, if it tears your head off, so you die faster than a dog man would just, I feel like, maul you. So you live longer. I don't know. Neither one. I'm like you, neither one. Do you think there's any of like gugway and stuff like out at the LBL where people, have seen the hyena type?
Well, there are lots of Bigfoot encounter stories in LBL as well. I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, with LBL, you guys have been there. I wouldn't rule anything out in LBL. I mean, that is just a creepy area. And if somebody said, "Hey, there's a 12-foot tall pterodactyl thing that's been carrying people off and eating them," I wouldn't put it past LBL. I mean, no, that is just one of those places where I've been in the woods in a lot of places across the United States, and LBL freaked me out. It was just different. It was like no other place I'd ever been.
Agreed. And it's got a weird, not only the vibe, but it just has a calling, like it calls you back,
And you can feel it. When you cross over the canal from Grand Rivers into northern LBL, it's like somebody throws a switch. You can just feel it in the air. Yeah,
absolutely. War Criminal 7, he says this all the time, and he's true. He said the LBL is a beautifully dark place.
I agree. It's got a stark beauty to it. It's a very beautiful place. It's a haunting place. And I was down at Demumbers Bay late one night, and it's one of the things I marveled about is just how quiet it was. Wasn't a lot of animal noises. Wasn't even a lot of tree frogs. I mean, I could hear some insects, but just how alone I felt.
Yeah.
And it was almost like that's the way it likes it. The LBL is almost just this pit of darkness almost, but it is hauntingly beautiful.
It really is. Yeah. And when Brandy and I, the first time we went in there, and this is weird, and I'm not saying it's paranormal related or anything like that. However, we both started getting like our eyes started watering, and as soon as we hit the property, both of us, and like I said, I'm not saying that
we were getting choked up, and I think that's more the metaphysical side. Yeah, I believe. But
did you guys go to the Nickel Cemetery?
I've been to Nickel Cemetery.
One of the things, and I noticed it at the Nickel Cemetery, and I had a similar feeling at the old Union Campground Cemetery here just outside of Springfield. It was just this almost overwhelming feeling of loneliness.
Yeah.
It was just hauntingly lonely.
Mm-hmm. There is a lot of weird stuff that happens at Nickel Cemetery, ghost-wise. too. So I mean,
cemetery is an interesting place. That's if you watch the video of me, my LBL video that's on my YouTube channel. I was filming at a Nickel Cemetery by myself, and I kept turning because I was hearing something walking in the woods to my left. I'm like, "The hell is over there?" And finally, I shut the camera off and went out in the woods looking for it, and I couldn't find it.
yeah. War Criminal was at Nichols this past weekend.
It's a pretty little cemetery. During the day, it looks well kept. Maybe some of the gravestones in there are pretty old, but you go there at night, it just feels different.
Yeah. So does Mount Pleasant Cemetery. You been to that one?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That one's pretty haunted too. And
is that the one with a picture of the cannon that you show all the time? Isn't that Mount Pleasant?
Mount Pleasant doesn't have a cannon.
No.
No. That picture of the cannon you're talking about was from out here at the Wilsons Creek battlefield.
Okay, yeah. I was thinking there was something to do with a cemetery.
Oh, we lost Brandy. Old Spirit Art asked, wasn't the entire area depopulated to be flooded for this? LBL used to be known as Land Between the Rivers. In 1963, under the authorization from President Kennedy, the Tennessee Valley Authority dammed those two rivers, creating that area. And yes, most of the people, well, actually all of the people that lived in LBL, their land was taken and they were forcibly removed from the land to create that public use area. But I honestly think that those lakes weren't just created simply for the hydrodynamic energy, but I think they were also to try to keep something pinned there.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it didn't work.
Didn't work. Hence, a lot of the missing people and the weird encounters that people have out there.
People that live around LBL on the opposite side of the lakes all have weird stories.
Yeah.
I was talking to a bunch of people in Paducah, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Every person I talked to, there's a little barbecue joint down the road from my hotel. I probably talked to 10 different people, and every one of them had a story of something weird that happened either on their property or while they were at LBL.
Wow. Yeah, it seems like, every time I've gone there, something, be it paranormal or whatever, something happens out there. It's just, the place just really doesn't disappoint if you're an enthusiast in any of this weirdness. It's a great place to go to investigate. But like you said, you got to watch your back.
Well, that's anywhere. I mean, if you're going to be out in the woods, there are things out there that are 100% not cryptid related that will hurt you or kill you. You got snakes, bears, mountain lions, wolves, coyotes. You got the whole gamut of animals that will hurt you if given the opportunity. And of course, the most dangerous animal of them all, the greater North American meth head.
Yep.
And we deal with a lot of those there in Missouri. So there are things out there that are 100% not cryptid or paranormal in any way, shape, or form that can and will still kill you.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful. You have to watch your back. And if you're going to go out there, and we say this all the time too, if you're going to go out anywhere off the beaten trail, make sure somebody knows where you're going. Somebody that's not with you, make sure someone knows where you're going and when you're supposed to be back. That way, if you don't come back on time, somebody knows where to start looking.
Yeah. Brandy says she's having technical issues. She's rebooting now. So she'll be back just as soon as she can.
Crystal, there are a lot of cabins in LBL if you're wanting to stay. Some of them, Krista can tell you exactly which campground it is, have had sightings in the campground.
Yep. Of Dogman, Bigfoot, and then also Ghost, and the one that we go to. So
and that's the campground I definitely want to stay at.
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. Our roulette says, I've heard stories about what might be Gugway. And I'm assuming at the LBL.
I'd love to hear those stories.
Yeah.
If you want to reach out to me and share those stories, I would love that. You can contact me at daroberts@daroberts.net.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing some of those stories too. We, like I said, when we go, it just, the place just never disappoints, and we do a lot, Brandy and I, we kind of go off by ourselves when we do the ghost side of things. But, when we're out there, the cryptid part of it, that just, we hear things and it's just weird. I've never been to a place that was that active with all of the weirdness. So yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I'm just looking forward to getting out there.
Yeah. Yep. You will not regret it, Robby. And Lene says, I read a story of a dogman sighting at Wranglers in the LBL. That's interesting because that Wranglers is the horse camp out there at the LBL. So, and Pancho Zorge, I can even answer that. Yes, they are. Are dogmen aggressive? Yes.
Yeah, of all the counter stories I've collected over the years of dogman encounters, I have yet to talk to anybody that described them as anything other as hellish or demonic.
Yep.
They're never described in friendly terms. Most often, people, when they say, when I saw that thing, it was hunting me.
Wow, that's interesting. Naomi asked DA, can you do a tongue pop for us?
I did it yesterday on
BMR's show. Yeah.
BMR's show. I think my sound filter might pop filter part of it out, but I'll give it a shot. Hopefully, you guys can still hear it.
Yeah.
Did it come through?
No.
The filter got it.
Yeah. If you're in person, because for everybody out there watching, DA can do the pop. It sounds, better than any tree knocking out there. It sounds like
the reason I learned to do that is it was a sound I used to hear coming from the woods behind my house. I grew up on a farm, and I would go out and I would whistle and mimic birds, and I would mimic the sounds I heard because I was always outdoors back in the 70s, in the early 70s in rural Missouri. If you got two channels on the antenna, you were dang lucky. And we didn't get a color TV until I was already in kindergarten. So,
right.
Before that, I was just outdoors all the time. And so I would start mimicking the sounds that I heard, and I would hear this popping sound coming from the trees. Mm-hmm. And I tried the popping it with my finger, and like, no, that's not it. And then I did try to pop my mouth like that, and like, no, that's not it. And then I started trying to like click my tongue, and the more I practiced it, the better I got at it. And now I can get pretty loud. If Doc was here, he could tell you. He was standing right next to me when I did it down at Joe Bald the other night. He's like, God dang, that made my ear ring.
Yeah, I've heard it too.
You did it when you and Eli was standing up there at the
in Gatlinburg.
And it was like everybody was moving around, talking, doing everything. And we were talking to Eli about our theory about it being tree knocks versus being that, and DA said, and did the pop, and everybody, the whole Small Town Monsters table just all stopped and went.
Everybody around us just froze and looked at me like, holy crap.
Yeah.
I was cracking up. I thought that was pretty awesome.
That is funny. Crystal McGee, she says, DA, are you still planning a meet and greet get together?
Yes, that's something that Robby and Doc and I have been discussing. We're kind of looking for a place where we could possibly host it. The trick is finding a campground that's willing to let us take over for 3 to 4 days, because when we would want to do it would be right in the busy season. What I'm thinking about doing is, if you guys have read my Apex Predator series, the second book of the Apex Predator series is called, I'm sorry, it's not the second book, it's the third book. Third book of the Apex Predator series is called Hunter's Moon, and it's set down near Eminence, Missouri. And just outside of Eminence is a little campground where the creatures attacked. And that, I think I'm going to be able to get that campground. I need to go down. I want to take a drive down there and talk to the folks, but it's not it's kind of an off the beaten path campground. And so I think we probably will be able to take that one over for a few days. And if that's the case, then yes, we are going to go forward with the camp out meet and greet.
And I got to tell you, Eminence, Missouri is one of the most beautiful places in the state of Missouri.
Eminence is a beautiful area. That is, to me, that is pristine Ozarks.
Yep.
Just absolute beautiful hills and valleys out there. And you've got the Current and the Jacks Fork River. And as a plus, you've got tons of Bigfoot sightings in that area.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was there in June. I spent a few days down there and we sat there and listened to, and I'm not saying it was a Bigfoot. However, it was about midnight and we heard a big tree crashing through the ground, just kind of interesting, something to be noted. So yeah, pretty good stuff. Look forward to it, DA. So keep us posted.
Oh, definitely. You guys will be definitely involved if we can get it.
Oh yeah, love to, for sure. Count us in. Count us in, for sure. And
Yeah,
Crystal says,
bring in my gear and my deodorant.
there you go. There you go. There you go. Well, we're at the hour and a half mark, guys. And I appreciate everybody tuning in. Robby, DA, thank you both very, very much.
Yes, absolutely.
Fun doing this.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, this was fun. It went by fast. It really did.
It did. Well, I had a little bit of technical difficulty.
Yeah, your technical difficulty.
Mine, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
Brandy, it's usually me on our show because usually about the 2-hour mark, DA, my audio cuts out and I have to
reboot.
Reboot. I don't know what it is about Talk Studio. It just doesn't like Robby's setup. It always shuts his audio off sometime late into the show.
We thought we made it through last night or Wednesday night. Thought everything was good. Doc goes through and talks about Dark Angel Medical, and he goes, "Robby, you want to talk about Scallywag Tactical?" And I'm like, DA and Doc are like,
Can't hear you. Can't hear you. I hear you. All right. Well, we appreciate everybody. And if you guys are going to be in the Texas area, come see us all at the Dogmen Conference, Labor Day weekend. And anything else, Brandy? Oh yeah, we're like 25 now away from 1,000. So keep sharing us out.
Well, we'll make sure to plug you guys tomorrow night on our show.
Thank you very much. Definitely appreciate
Hopefully
it.
we can get you to that 1,000 mark.
That would be awesome. And you guys, tomorrow night, you have Miss Naoma coming on. Can you talk?
Miss Naoma's going to be joining us. We're going to be talking Dogman, werewolves, and gugway.
There you go.
And the possibility that they sometimes overlap.
My favorite.
Yep. So I'll definitely
kind of what we're talking about tonight, but kind of continuing it.
Yep.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Sounds good. Yep.
You could call it just part 2 of tonight.
You're right.
Maybe you could call that a chain.
There you go. There you go.
There we go.
So if everybody tune in tomorrow night to a DA show, DA Ex Machina, and it's at 8 p.m. Central tomorrow night. So anyway, thank you, everybody, and we will see everybody tomorrow night in DA's chat. Good night,
everybody.
Good night.
That's all I got to say about that, Patty.